Hello students, Michael Sanchez, violin teacher here. Welcome to the Just Starting class for all students out there that just started to play the violin or maybe been playing for less than a month. So in today's class we're going to be giving you guys some tuning tips as the people that are actually here in the live class express interest in some tips on tuning. So I'm going to definitely talk about that today, and for those of you guys that are listening to this audio recording, I highly encourage you guys to participate in the live webinars, which are easily sign-upable on the site under the webinar tab. Okay, so tuning is definitely a tricky thing for especially beginners. For those of you guys that are here, you guys can see what I'll show you guys today, but there's two different spots basically where you can tune the violin. There's the first spot, which is the black pegs right by the scroll. There's 4 of them. Each of these are basically pegs that allow you to really change the pitch of the string, which can easily bring the string either higher in pitch or lower in pitch. You have to definitely be careful with the pegs as they can actually make the string break if you go too far. But there is a lot of students out there that are a little bit too timid with using the pegs. So I'm going to give you guys hopefully some tips on that. The other place where you can tune is in the place right down by the bridge. There's a little screw that most of the time is on just one of the 4 spots that you see on the tailpiece. But sometimes you'll see them all 4 screws. Basically the reason for either 1 or 4, if you see 1, typically that means that there's synthetic strings on your violin, which means that it's definitely good quality strings that don't twist as well with fine tuners. So that's kind of the reason why you only see 1 on the E string, which kind of means you have to learn how to use the pegs. You definitely can get fine tuners put on after the fact if you only have 1, so don't feel like you're out of luck if you only have 1, because it's not a difficult thing to add on. You can bring it to your local luthier music shop and they should be able to do that for you. And that could be a solution for you if you've been having a lot of trouble with tuning. Basically, tuning with the fine tuners is definitely simpler, but keep in mind that it's only going to adjust the intonation. It's kind of a fancy word. The pitch of the note just a little bit, whereas the pegs can drastically change the pitch of the note. The goal with tuning is for each one of your strings to be on the proper pitch. So you definitely want to make sure that they're all in the proper spots, which would be G, the lowest string, D would be the second lowest string, second thickest, A, and then E. Okay? But now even if you're playing a while and you get your violin tuned, a lot of times it can easily get out of tune just by the different weather conditions, humidity, different things like that. So a lot of times you'll find that you're in the perfect spot, but then you'll slightly get flat and then you have to tune your violin back up again. If you're just a little bit off, you can use the fine tuners, which are probably much easier than the pegs. But if, let's say, you leave your violin in the car for a long period of time or you're in really hot weather and you're playing outside, the pegs can easily slip, and then you do have to know how to use the pegs to get it back into place. So one lesson that is really good for learning how to tune, so I'm going to forward you guys to this lesson, but I will give you some tips today, is my lesson 3 on the website, which is available in the beginner lessons area. And it's basically called Learn to Tune and Place Fingers Down. So this is a great lesson to teach you guys how to use an actual tuning app, which I highly recommend to students. It's really easy to use a tuning app to make sure that each of the strings is in the proper spot, G, D, A, E. The one I personally like is called INS, Tuner Lite. Again, INS, Tuner Lite. That's available on Apple phones, and it's really easy to use because it actually lights up different colors if you're a little bit off or right on the pitch. Okay, so hopefully you guys get a chance to watch that video, and you'll learn a lot about using the pegs and tuning. But let me just give you guys some things to really look out for as far as using the pegs. One kind of analogy that I give that I find is really helpful for students is trying to understand that tuning with the pegs is very similar to the same concept as if you have a nail and you're trying to get a nail into a piece of wood, or a 2x4, we'll say. So if you have a nail in your hand and you're trying to get that nail manually into a piece of wood, you wouldn't have very much luck just trying to poke it in. So the way that you would get that nail in manually is by twisting the nail and pushing at the same time. You would start to develop a groove into the piece of wood. This concept is very similar to tuning with the pegs, because a lot of students, what they do is they assume that just twisting is going to allow the pegs to stick, and that's definitely not the case. The pegs take two things. It takes twisting to the proper position, but it also takes, which is just as important, pushing inwards to keep the peg to stick. Just like if you were to have a nail and you were trying to get the nail to shove into the piece of wood, you would need to push it and twist at the same time. So raise your hand if that makes sense. Hopefully that's a good analogy for you guys. I know it's not always easy to understand everything I say. All right, good. Glad you guys understand that. So basically what you guys should do is you need to have stability when you're tuning with the pegs. And to have stability, what I recommend you guys do is take your right hand and hold on to the neck, which is basically the place where you put fingers down exactly. Hold it as tight as you can. Don't hold back. You won't strangle the violin to death. Hold the violin in the right hand and have the violin be facing you. So right now I can see the bridge and my right hand is on the neck, holding it as tight as I can. Okay. Now, while you're doing that, have your thumb available to actually pluck the strings, pick the strings, while holding on to the neck tightly. So let's just try that real quick. So I'm holding on to the neck as hard as I can, and I'm just picking the strings across. Okay, so I'm doing both at the same time. Now the reason why we're wanting to do that is we want to understand where we're at as far as pitch when tuning with the pegs, and we also want to have stability while doing that. Because as we're pushing inwards into the peg box with the peg, if we're pushing, we need that stability to be able to get that pressure into the piece of wood or the peg box. Okay, so what I want you guys to do is, while holding it and having your thumb available, I want you guys to take the G string peg, which is the peg that is at the bottom left of the peg box. And I want you guys to loosen it as you guys pluck it. So it should sound like this. Okay. Don't worry so much about pushing in as you're doing that. We're just kind of trying to loosen it. And what I want you guys to do is just kind of go back and forth between those 2 points to just kind of feel how much the peg is pushed into the peg box. Like that. So some violins you're going to feel kind of more of a stickiness. Some violins you're going to feel kind of more of a looseness. It's important to kind of feel how loose or how tight or how sticky the peg is that you're working with. And you can do that forever and ever and ever, and you'll never break the string, as long as you don't go over the pitch. So you're totally fine doing what I'm doing. Like that, okay? All right, so now what we want to do is we want to keep the stability in the right hand, and we want to pluck the string, but we want to now slowly work our way up into the G pitch that we're trying to get. Now, if you guys are beginners, which most of you guys are, you guys might not really know exactly what that's supposed to sound like. My recommendation would be to, if you have a piano, try to use that to play the pitch. There's actually tuning apps. I think INS Tuner Lite does have this feature where it actually will play the sound of the G string so you guys can hear what it's supposed to sound like. So that is a nice thing to have. Other thing you can do is go on YouTube and just type into YouTube G string violin pitch, and there's probably 10 of them that will show you exactly what pitch, what sound we're trying to get with the G to be in tune. Okay? So I just know, because I've done this a million times, this is what we're going for. That's the sound. That sound, okay? All right, so I'm going to loosen it up. Okay, now I'm going to try to work my way into that pitch. that. Now, I don't know if you guys could hear that little click, but that little click was basically showing me, or showing you guys, that I actually have kind of a sticky peg. So it doesn't really take a ton for me to push in with this particular peg because it kind of already is worked in. It's kind of sticky. Every peg is different. So see, this would be a characteristic. If a peg is really slippery, it would easily fall down like this. So if let's say I find the pitch, but then it falls like this. Like that. So it's falling, it's not sticking. So, but then the characteristic of a sticky peg is this. Here, listen to this. You guys hear that sound? That's showing me that there's stickiness. So stickiness is good, but you don't want overly stickiness because then you won't be able to really fine tune where that peg is going into. So you kind of want a good balance. Okay, so I just did it there, and having that tuner nearby so it can show you exactly where you're at with the pitches is going to be helpful. Once you get around that point of the G pitch, then you can use your fine tuner if you have one to get it exact. That's kind of what the term fine tuner is referring to. But once you get more advanced, you guys will actually be able to tune basically just from the D pitch by finding that perfect fifth. So here's my D pitch. I can find my G just based on the D and the G together. Now right there my peg slipped, so what I would have to do, this is a little more advanced tuning, I would have to actually take my violin and make it stable so I can push into the peg box to get it to stick. Just like that. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. I highly recommend you guys watch that video, that lesson 3 video. And I think that's really going to help. And then also, with these pegs, I think just getting used to the tightness and trying to understand it as far as the nail going into the piece of wood, that it does take pressure in as well as turning to get the right pitch. A lot of people are too timid when it comes to using pegs, so you don't want to be that person, but you also don't want to be the person that goes way over the pitch that breaks it. Not the end of the world if you break your string. It's happened to all of us. But I would say if you get 2 letters above the pitch, that's when you can be in kind of breaking zone. So if I'm like on an A, which would be like, this is G, so that's an A right there. Now if I went 1 letter above that, that's kind of the breaking zone. So it's not going to kill you to be a little bit above G, but it definitely will if you're at B. So I'm not even going to try because I don't feel like breaking a $30 string. Okay. All right. Well, what I'm going to do now is just hang out with the people that came to the live class, and a lot of you guys that are here, hopefully encouraged to do that in the future, answer any questions they might have, and hopefully for all you students that are just starting getting into the violin, you guys are utilizing the site and getting excited about progressing on your instrument. It's certainly a lot of fun to play the violin, and it's been a lifetime of learning for me, and it's never too late to learn. So hopefully you guys are encouraged by that, and feel free to ask me any questions through email or on the site. Hope you guys have a great day.